Hello, my traveling manifestors. So today we're going to dive into the dome of the Santa Maria del Fiore in Florence and the gentleman who completed it, Filippo Brunelleschi. Brunelleschi was not the obvious choice to transform Florence's skyline. He was a very hot-headed goldsmith with absolutely no formal training in architecture or engineering. So he was a very unlikely candidate to, first of all, compete in one of the most ambitious projects of the Renaissance. So when he actually won in 1418, it came as a total shock for a lot of people. Florence was promised a world-class dome for decades, and the daunting task of completing the massive structure was left unfinished for quite a few years. Brunelleschi's bold ideas were met with a lot of skepticism and even ridicule. He was mocked for his design, but his radical thinking would soon cement his place in one of history's greatest inventors and art and engineering. While Brunelleschi was the mastermind behind the dome, he did not work in isolation. His success was closely tied to the Medici family, Florence's most powerful patrons of the arts and champions of the Renaissance. By the early 15th century, the Medici had established themselves as the wealthiest banking family in Europe, controlling commerce, politics, and culture throughout Florence. They understood that great works of art and architecture could be used not just for religious devotion, but also for symbols of power, prestige, and intellectual superiority. Giovanni de' Medici, that was a mouthful, was the founder of the Medici Bank and father of Cosimo de' Medici, which he'll be later known as Cosimo the Elder. He played a key role in financing many of Florence's grand projects, including those involving Brunelleschi. Without the Medici patronage, it would be very unlikely that Brunelleschi would have had the resources or influence necessary to push forward with this revolutionary architectural ideas. While Medici did not officially commission the dome itself, Florence's cathedral was a civic project. But the Medici was behind the scenes for their support, ensuring that Brunelleschi had both the financial backing and the political connections to outmaneuver his rivals and see the project through. So Cosimo, who later became the de facto ruler of Florence, was a personal admirer of Brunelleschi. He not only financed several of Brunelleschi's other architectural projects, which included the iconic Medici-sponsored Old Sacristy in San Lorenzo, but he also helped shield the architect from opposition. At the time when his critics tried to discredit Brunelleschi, Medici influence helped him maintain favor within elite circles. So when Florence civic leaders launched this contest, the idea of the dome, architects and engineers from all across Europe had flocked to compete, not just for the prestige but also for the generous 200 gold florin prize. The dome had to span 150 feet. That's wider than anything built since antiquity, and it had to atop existing cathedral walls, which were already reaching 180 feet high. Now, they also didn't want that traditional Gothic supports that you see in Milan, such as the flying buttress or the pointed arches, because Milan was a rival city to Florence, and they refused anything to look similar to that. Plus, there just was not enough wood throughout all of Tuscany to build traditional scaffolding needed to support the dome during construction. Whoever won the competition would need to defy and invent an entirely new way to build the dome. So what was Brunelleschi's answer to this? It was to build two domes instead of one. A structural breakthrough never before attempted. So the inner shell was reinforced by 4 stone and chain hoops. That provided the strength and stability, while the outer shell was lighter, and that was more designed for aesthetic and protection. And then he developed a herringbone brick pattern, allowing the bricks to lock into place as they were laid, preventing collapse without scaffolding. Like, that was ingenious. City officials were so intrigued by this idea that Brunelleschi refused to reveal his full strategy, fearing that his rivals would steal his methods, and his secrecy led to heated arguments. At one point, he was even thrown out of an assembly and labeled a buffoon. So Brunelleschi, didn't just design the dome, he revolutionized the whole construction process itself. Not only did he do the items that I mentioned above, but he also invented an ox-driven hoist using a revolutionary gear and clutch system that allowed workers to lift massive stone blocks without reversing the oxen's movements. The workers used precision-built platforms, which also supported hidden pockets in the dome walls, so they were accurately placed, which allowed the masons to guide their work using chains and string lines. His innovative techniques were so ahead of their time that some aspects of the domes and their internal structure to this day remain a mystery. So after 16 years of construction, the dome was finally completed in 1436. After Brunelleschi's death in 1446, his genius continued to awe scholars and architects alike. The dome remains one of the largest masonry domes ever built. Listen to this, using over 4 million bricks, weighing over 25,000 tons. That's just insane. His final touches to the dome was a lantern, which was designed by him, which is actually added a decade later after completing the dome. And one really cool thing is he's actually buried at the crypt of the cathedral, which is an honor that's rarely given to architects. But because of his divine intellect in the statement, his unparalleled vision gave him that opportunity to be buried there. While Brunelleschi's architectural genius made the dome a reality, it was the Medici's long-term investment in Florence cultural and artistic growth that allowed such great groundbreaking ideas to flourish. By the time the dome was completed, Cosimo de' Medici had risen to power, turning Florence into the beating heart of the Renaissance. He and his descendants, including Lorenzo the Magnificent, would continue to fund the greatest artists and architects of the era, ensuring that Florence remained the center of art, knowledge, and innovation. The dome is more than just an architectural achievement. It's a symbol of human ingenuity, ambition, and power of patronage. Nearly 600 years later, it continues to inspire the extraordinary feats of the Renaissance. Without the Medici's unwavering supports of arts, Florence and perhaps even the course of the Western architect might have looked a little bit different. While Brunelleschi's crowning masterpiece still dominates the Florence skyline, the Medici legacy exists far beyond the dome. Over the next century, they would become a driving force behind commissions for Michelangelo's David, Leonardo da Vinci's early works, the Botticelli's Birth of Venus, the Uffizi Gallery, the completion of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, just to name a few. The Medici were so influential during the Renaissance period that almost all artworks that came from the Italian area were popularized by the Medici. By nurturing visionaries like Brunelleschi, the Medici helped shape the Renaissance, ensuring that Florence's beauty, creativity would echo through ages. So this is just one of the things that are on the travel itinerary. One thing that you see, the dome is probably one of my favorites pieces while being in Florence, aside from the Uffizi Gallery. I absolutely love it there too. But it is absolutely fantastic, and just a beautiful piece. Anyways, video is long enough, or the audio is long enough, so I'm going to let this go. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for hanging out. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you've ever been to Florence before. What is your favorite part of Florence?